52 years ago today. And only elders can say something happened 52 years ago. I moved to Santa Barbara on this weekend 52
Amazing.
years ago. It's
Amazing.
Fiesta weekend. It's our Viva la Fiesta celebration. We've got probably 50,000 people in town for the weekend. Our old Spanish days, the parade was yesterday. The festivities are all for the last couple of days. And I moved here with my very young family. And I'm just it's a big day. It's one I celebrate every year, but this one I get 2 years ago when I was 50 was big, but I'm excited. Good morning, brother.
Good morning, sir. And one, I hope that you're like taking this in and just savoring this and all that you've done. I mean, it's just amazing to hear what you've done, and 52 years is a long time.
Yeah, it kind of goes by really quick. Thankfully I learned years ago, and we've talked about this a lot, about being present and just enjoying the day. And when I woke up that morning, we had gotten in late at night with a U-Haul parked behind a gas station, had no idea where we were going. We had just knew we were leaving Los Angeles, literally had no plan, and hit Santa Barbara and woke up in the morning and went, wow, this place is beautiful. And it was probably 72 degrees. And I went to the First Baptist Church and I said, I'm here. I'm a cook. I'm looking for work. And they set me up with an interview. I got hired on the spot and was working at 4 o'clock that afternoon.
Amazing. That is so amazing.
And I noticed that first morning that one of the interesting things about Santa Barbara is we're surrounded on three sides by mountains and on the fourth by the ocean. And the mountains are really close in, and they're not high like your Rockies, but they're mountains. They're not hills, they're mountains.
Yeah.
And you can sit and there are so many places in Santa Barbara where you can be up and see the mountains and the ocean all at the same time. And the majesty of that continues to this day to be something I just look and I get emotional even now, just thinking how beautiful it is here, and the impact of the place has had on my life.
So we often talk about when we know where we're at, we know who we are.
Uh,
And that actually, to give credit where credit's due, comes from Kimberly and all of her work and her studies.
mm.
Um, but
Say it again.
when we know where we're at, we know what to do, and we know who we are.
Wow.
And so that level of orienting to place is
Mm.
incredibly important to us. And it's been a piece that has gone by the wayside. Um, and I, and it's still important. I mean, it's like in our bones, it's in our DNA.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, what's interesting with your story is actually 54 years ago, and it was actually in September. I drove in a Volkswagen Bug to Colorado to go camping, and I slept in a park. Now, parks here are huge. Parks here are hundreds of acres. So, and slept in that park, which is interestingly enough about 5 minutes from where I live right now.
No kidding. And that was
And
from Ohio?
yes, I was from Ohio,
Wow.
and went
Wow.
backpacking and from there, and essentially never left. So, um, and and like you were describing, when you got to Santa Barbara, it's like you went, oh, yeah, this is where I belong. And I think that from my perspective, that knowing where we are and knowing where we belong and orienting is a really big deal.
I I don't know that I knew that at the time, that I was cognizant of that at the
Mm,
time. Mine was, I was escaping Los Angeles,
mhm.
literally, not running from the law, but I was, a young
It's that
family
you were
and
escaping Los Angeles, not the Los Angeles Police Department.
correct. I want to make sure everybody's fact checking that. But it was like I needed to change my geography,
Mhm.
and I'm curious, when you left Ohio, because we've talked about how everything changed for you with the National Guard incident at Ohio State, and like there was the big flip for you, or Kent State rather. I'm sorry. When things flipped for you, was there a notion of leaving Ohio?
Well, there was clearly a notion of knowing that's not where I belonged.
Uh,
I did not have a clue where I belonged, at the time.
yeah, same.
The, um and I just knew that I didn't belong there anymore.
Mm,
And when I've looked back, even growing up, I mean, I have some great memories of growing up. I grew up in,
yeah, yeah, sure.
with creeks and woods and fields and animals and swamps that would freeze over that I could ice skate on in the winter. And I mean, and great memories. And it was still, it's like, yeah, this isn't where I belong.
Yeah.
Um, that's what I knew. I didn't know where I was going or what I was doing, or in all honesty, who I would do that with.
Yeah.
Um,
So with that as a backdrop, this idea of traveling, finding a place, the idea of having milestones, that all has this has all been happening this week for me, because another a major event happened 40 years ago, and that's when we founded our computer animation software company, Wavefront. Uh, People who are listening to this may have heard of the software called Maya, which is now 20 years old. We're probably most known for that more than the name of the company.
mhm.
People know Maya, and that was 40 years ago. And I took occasion to host a reunion today. We'll have about 50 people coming in from all over the country to celebrate that and celebrate the impact we as a collective had on the animation industry and entertainment in general, and video games and industrial design and all of those things that at the time we just wanted to make cool images, and we just wanted to, like, oh my god, look what we could do, oh my god, look at this. It felt like there
Mm,
was this, for the first 10 years very specifically, it was discovery after discovery after discovery. And we would showcase those every year at our annual trade show called SIGGRAPH, which also happens to have just concluded this week.
how
And we
cool is
would
that?
present technical papers, and uh, we would meet, the whole industry gathered once a year for this. And it's still the same. It's a tenth the size of what it was. It was epically huge at that time. And I don't I'm pretty sure we never had the conversation of, oh, we're changing the world right now. It wasn't, it was only in retrospect. And in fact, it wasn't until 10 years after that that the Motion Picture Academy said, hold it, we've not recognized any of the software developments that have gotten the industry where it is today.
Mm,
And the people who ran the Scientific and Technical Achievement Award, that board, went back and retroactively recognized companies like us. We got 3 or 4 scientific and technical achievement awards. We got an Oscar for the software. It wasn't the people, it was the tools that were developed because of the impact they had on the industry. And I think about, as now as an elder, we think about the tracks we've left, and to your point, left some pretty big tracks.
Hmm. What's really interesting about what you're saying, Mark, is I have like 3 or 4 thoughts here. Let me try and walk through them. Over the past, what, 3 years now? Three
Yeah.
to 4 years? You and I have become very, very dear friends. You're one of my very best friends. You're a person that I will call or take a call anytime for anything. And the kindness that we share between each other is epic from my perspective. And one of the things that really strikes me is I probably knew you a year before I had any clue
Mm,
what you had done and what your company had done, and that has always impressed me, and always impressed me from the standpoint of that you were about relationship first, not about uh, sharing your accomplishments with me or anybody. I mean, I've been in many situations with you, with groups of people, and it's like, I mean, one of the initiations that we were at in Austin, where you sort of offhandedly threw out, "Yeah, I created Maya." And there were some people there that actually really knew what that meant, and they were going, "What?" So, um, and that really strikes me from a place of eldership, in that um, there's so much right now online and on social media of, it's like, look what I did, look what I did, look what I did, look what I did, look what I
mm,
did.
mm, mm, mm,
And um, look how cool I am, or look what we put together, or those things. And one of the things I've said for many, many years is that the greatest marketing that we can do, and I'm not suggesting that you're trying to market anything, I'm just talking in general, is um, the greatest marketing we can do is to be incredibly competent at what we do, and to hold a level of humility in that process. That becoming competent, we're not trying to become competent for the purpose of recognition, but become competent because we want to be competent in something. And um, it actually took me a while to go, oh, this guy's sort of a big deal. And and you you deserve a huge amount of credit and a huge amount of recognition. And what's really cool to hear, and you were sharing this a little bit here, but also offline before we started recording, is you have people flying in today from all over the world to celebrate what you all have done.
yeah.
And um, people who have done huge things, as where formerly you were their boss, or you were their teacher, or you were their mentor, or and that's one of the other pieces that I think is so cool, is the idea that you have worked with people who took what they learned from you and took your guidance, have made movies that are everybody in the world knows, or have made other advances that everybody in the world knows. And that's one of the other pieces, certainly in my work, when I see a former student go out and create something incredibly cool where they've literally surpassed me in what I've done is to truly take joy in that.
Mm.
And I see you doing that. It's like, oh yeah, this person was my mentor and I hired this person to do this and now they just made the movie Up, or they just did this other major piece that I mean you deserve a lot of credit for this, and I really hope that you're able to
No,
do that.
thank you, sir. I appreciate that. One of the I'm often the last person in the audience as the credits are rolling by on a film because I want to see if one of my guys or girls was in the credits. In these days, it's typically as visual effects supervisor. And
Mm,
last year, getting to see him walk up on stage and get the four of them get the Oscar for best visual effects for Avatar: The Way of Water was spectacular, and getting to spend time a month earlier here in Santa Barbara when he got another award, and just saying, hey, he remembered coming in, me hiring him. He was right out of the university, and I had a call. I've had lots of calls because people are, reaching out and want to talk because they can't be here, but they want to, they find me and they want to
yeah,
talk
they
with
want
me.
to connect. Hmm.
Yeah. And so I've had several very long, wonderful conversations. One of them was a young man. He's not young anymore. He's an elder in his own right.
Well, if they're 69 or less, they're younger. They're
Okay,
young.
there you go. And uh, I was just celebrating with him, just connecting. I haven't talked to him in 25, 30 years. It's been a long time.
Mm.
And I said, "Oh, we're on Zoom," and he says, "Yeah, we're at our lake house." And I went, "Oh, so okay, stop. We're at our lake house." He just said casually, "Oh, which it assumes you have another house someplace else."
Ah,
And it he told me I said, "I want to hear the story, your origin story with us." He said, "I flew from university from Indiana. It was the first time I'd been on a plane. I flew to Santa Barbara, got the job." And he said a few months later, he had traveled to 8 different countries. He was one of our technical support guys. So
hmm,
he would assist salespeople in showing how to use the software at the time. And the our CEO at the time, he said, came down to his office, and he said, "Brian, I have some good news and some bad news." And he goes, "Okay, well, what's the good news?" He goes, "In 20 years, you're going to thank me for the bad news." He said, "I need you to pack your bags. We're opening up an office in Tokyo, and I need you to go be the technical support person for Wavefront Japan." And he was like, "Oh my God, that is I mean, go from, imagine Indiana to Santa Barbara to Tokyo, the culture shock for this young man." And he crushed it. I mean, as he's done everything in his life. And he said, "Yeah, now I'm so happy. I met so many different people with the cultural, like everything that happened to him set him up to go run abc.com, to be the chief technical officer at match.com, to go and do, you know, several multi-million dollar businesses that he completed. So when I was reading the comments from that article and hearing people who either had learned Maya in school and now had a job, taught Maya, some employees who the things they'd gone on to do. It feels like I could spend the next several years collecting those stories and
hmm.
making a book out of that. And then I just wonder, why would I do that? But it's because I want to hear the stories.
Right. So when you hear the stories, what about the stories is so important and powerful for you?
I'll tell you, I know exactly the answer to that. And it is, I love to hear the story where uh the happy ending. I love the happy ending. I love the there's it's not a story if there isn't any struggle. So I know there's struggle
Hmm.
in that story, but I also know that there is success at the end of that story.
Right.
Whatever whatever success looks like. An example, over the years, I'll be shopping, just grocery shopping, and someone will recognize me. A mom often will come up and say, I need to, your mark. And I go, yeah. She says, my son is Dwayne. And I have to tell you the impact that working with you had on his life. And a proud mother stops me to be able to tell me that. And that's just a little that couldn't have been more than a minute or 2 minutes.
Hmm.
And I
Hmm.
remember every single one of those. And I saw early on that what we had created in terms of a workplace, not just what our software could do, that was a thing, but what working as a team and the kind of environment that we created and the kind of culture, we've talked about culture before, that was important to me and the team, right? It wasn't just
Hmm.
me. It was a culture. Sure, it started with me, but it went out and out and out. And people, I knew early on that people said that was the best place they'd ever worked.
So one is we need that so much. And knowing you, I 1,000% believe that it's the best place that they've ever worked.
Yeah.
The other piece that you're really talking about here, the sort of meta view, is it's not just what we do, but it's how we do what we do.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Um, and and that part, I think, is that gets missed, horribly, horribly missed. And how we do what we do is so much more important actually than what we do. And the and it also increases the value of what of the other part of what do we do? Yeah, we help create Maya, but God, I don't want to see any of those people again.
Right.
Versus this is the 40th anniversary. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Am I getting that correct? Of the beginning of that work, and people are coming back to this reunion. And I think that you said 50-ish people,
Yeah.
plus many other people who can't be there that have made contact with you. And unfortunately, even people who are no longer alive from that time. They're all coming back because of how you did what you did, because of how the company worked, because of the support, because of the creativity, because of the environment. Again, that piece of place and orientation that is so missing in what's happening in the world right now.
It to amplify that, it feels like, because we've talked about relational versus transactional um, ways of living.
Hmm.
And if I just go to work, that's a transaction. In exchange for my labor, I will get money.
Right.
That's a transaction. As opposed to the people I get to go work with and the team I'm on, and the work is satisfying. So it's, what is it? Someone to love, something to do, something to look forward to.
Hmm.
Right. So I have a major release to look forward to, and these things we're making are going to go excite people, and they're going to get excited about, oh, look at all these new things we can do. Something to love is when you love the work, and something to do is I'm engaged in something that is fun, but it makes a difference, right? I have something to do that's important. It's not that it was a relationship with the company rather than a transaction with the company.
Yes.
I don't think I'm overstating that.
You're not overstating it. And when we look at productivity, look at creativity, look at recovering from illness or injury, look at relationships, when we look at how we get through some difficult times in every relationship that we're in, because every relationship will have that, how part of that is of the utmost importance. Not the what do we do? Well, I did this with Mark. Well, yes, I did do this with Mark, but how we did this together is what is puts everything over the top. So what is also, and you actually didn't mention this, but I want to bring this up. I know Kimberly, your wife, who is, I hold her in the highest esteem possible. I have and totally love her and who she is and what she brings. But what I'm aware of, and even though you didn't specifically say this, is I know that she is 150% or 500,000 times percent on board with all of this, that this is not
Mm.
something that you are doing and she's off doing something else. She will be, you two are in this together. And that piece, I think, deserves a lot of one recognition, but also kudos.
Yeah, even though all of this work predated her, and in fact, it was 20 years ago where that all ended, right? Wavefront had gone through various things, and all the OG had left, most of the OG had left, and
Mm-hmm.
now it was a different thing, and now it was definitely a transactional company, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
had been acquired and reacquired and was all run by the money guys, and like all of us were out. And it was at that time in 2003 that I met Kimberly, so 21 years ago, and that was the beginning of another chapter. And I kind of parked all of that, put it in a box, and said, okay, that was that.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until 10 years ago I just didn't talk about it because I'm super present. I'm talking about what I'm doing now, not what I did. That it would just come up in conversation. I had a podcast that I did, a business podcast locally, and my partner, uh, it was a year into it, much like you, when I mentioned in conversation to one of the guests something about Maya and software, and after the show he goes, hold it, you were the guys who did Maya? And I go, yeah. And he goes, oh my God. And then tells me the story of him coming to Macworld when we announced Maya on the Mac, standing in the back going, oh my God, can you believe this just changed my life? And I didn't know, and he didn't know. And here we are had been sitting 3 feet away from each other for a
Right.
year.
Right.
And so that that part of me, it's not like she met me and now I'm that guy. It's we created a whole new thing ourselves and have gone on to
Totally.
create several things. But as soon as you brought up her name, I thought there's something about her that was attractive to me, in that she is a very high achiever. She's like, we're both alphas, and she was NCAA Woman of the Year. She was academic All-American. She had written a couple of books. She had, fifth Dan black belt, like all these things. But I didn't learn about those things for a long time. She still doesn't talk about any of that.
Right.
We're very much, we're just not those people. to your point of, we're not living our life on TikTok,
Right.
celebrating those things. Yet today, she will be by my side supporting me as I get hugged by 50 people. And
Hmm.
they're going to want to know what I did, but more importantly, I want to know what they've done. And I know there's no way to capture it all in the 4 hours we have. And so I'm just going to just let that flow over me. In fact, one of the guys who's thankfully a few people stepped up and said, how can we help make this thing happen? And it's, they're the ones who are making it happen. Um, he texted yesterday, he goes, we're all going to be so busy loving on each other. Not what he said, but my words. He said, none of us are going to take any pictures and we're going to be pissed. So can we get a photographer? So we have a staff photographer, but he's busy. He put me to another one of our guys. He was busy. They finally got me a really good guy who's going to show up and take pictures of all of it. So we'll capture that. And then I was the guy on our birthday who always did something to celebrate it, right? Did
Hmm.
something to call that. Cause I bet you 90% of the businesses out there don't know the origin story, don't know the birthday of the company, don't know or celebrate that. And I think birthdays are so important. And so I remember at one point, and I'm actually, I'll find a picture of it. I had a very, very prominent watercolorist here in Santa Barbara. I had her come paint the front of the building. And then I
Mm.
had that replicated and I gave that to everybody in the company as their birthday present for that year.
How cool is that?
Yeah. So I want to do a similar thing with like a photo book of
Hmm. Hmm.
someone found the it was we for some reason in 1991 we created a book of everybody's picture, their name, their birthday, a little bit about them, what they did at the company. So the Europeans, the Asian, everybody, all in one book. And I got a photocopy of that and I printed that out, so we'll have that. So when you look and you think back that far, it feels like it was yesterday. Yeah,
Hmm.
it wasn't. It was a while ago.
That is so freaking cool. So, what would you say as an elder and mentor to those people, both men and women, about one, this process that you've gone through? And we haven't quite talked about this in this way, but um, the idea of life being a process, life is not a thing, but the process that you've gone through with this, and what mentorship or advice would you give to the 20, 30, even 40-year-old person that's out there right now with
It's simple as 3 words. Every moment matters. The moment that you enjoy with another person becomes a memory for the two of you. And while it could only be a brief interaction in a grocery store or in a meeting or some interaction, if you close your eyes and think back the important moments in your life, many of them were very, very, very brief encounters with another human. A sentence,
yes.
a word, a conversation, a look, a glance. I can think of hundreds of them that I'll go, uh, it a word, a sentence I heard in an audiobook, a word, a comment someone made, a guy who stopped me on his bicycle 30 years ago and said, hey, I recognize you. I took your picture in front of the Arlington Theater, and that picture, you know, though
Mhm.
every moment matters. So so know that you are part of a future memory and comport yourself accordingly.
Thank you for saying that. And may I add something to that?
Please.
because one of the things that you often say to me is,
I know what you're gonna say.
I'll bet you do. What I want is that when people hear that every moment matters, I want them to take that in to the depth that you're speaking at. The other piece that is at least possible when someone hears that is to go, okay, I gotta make every moment matter. I've got to achieve every second. And I know that that's not what you're saying. What you're saying is speaking about quality when you're talking about every moment matters. The other piece that you've said to me many times is that you have time. And it's like,
And that
oh,
that was a moment on stage with Jean-Louis Rodrigue, who was the head of theater at UCLA and continues to be Kimberly's acting coach and is even coming up here later this month. We have a retreat coming and he's going to come and talk. And the
mm,
very first thing when I'm standing in front of me and he's relaxed, he just looks at me, he goes, "You have time."
mm,
And that is from him. And it is, and that was 20 years ago that we both heard that. And I've said it 10,000 times. Be, and it's at a particular time when I know I'm with someone that, and they're to your point, oh, you have time. And so say that to yourself, the people that are listening, if you get nothing else from this, when when you feel yourself, the accelerators going in, even if you're in the, because the Olympics are happening now, you're at the starting block for the 100-yard dash. For that millisecond that you're ready, set, use, I have time. Even though you don't know it yet, but you're going to break a world record. Saw
mm,
yesterday, it was fantastic. I bet you there was some internal voice to every one of those people that allowed them to set and be ready. And you have time. I'm connecting another dot, that you have time, and a big breath stimulates your parasympathetic system,
mm,
which allows you to make better decisions.
which allows you to let every moment.
My friend, wow, what a great conversation.
Thank you for sharing what you shared today. And from the deepest places inside me,
Hmm.
one, I love you. And
Yeah,
two, congratulations. You deserve to be celebrated.
thank you.